Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of CarnivorousGrama Speaks. I am super excited here today to have with me Craig Emerich, and he's going to come and tell us his story. So, hey, Craig.
Hi, Robin. Thanks for having me on.
It's so cool that you're here. I, reached out to you a couple months ago, and you offered to come and be on the show. So I'm super excited and thankful, grateful that you have decided to come and be on my YouTube channel. And so, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name's Craig Emerich. My wife Maria, as probably most people know, is a pretty prolific author in both the keto and carnivore space. Pretty much all the books we wrote together in some context. Early on, it was mostly me behind the scenes doing things like calculating macros for recipes and that kind of stuff. Then it evolved to me contributing. And in this book here, our keto book, I wrote most of the biochemistry and science that's in that book. And then I also did all the front material in our carnivore cookbook, which it's called the Carnivore Cookbook, but half that book is like science and information and good context. And so that's what I've evolved into is we write these books together. I do most of the biology, science, biochemistry. She does the recipes and a lot of creating. She's like a chemist in the kitchen, creating all kinds of innovative recipes and using innovative ingredients. And it works really well together.
I can tell you that I love the recipes that I find on Maria's channel.
Yeah.
So many great recipes that I have used that she created. The most recent one I used was the Carnivore Lasagna.
Oh yeah.
Um, Incredible, absolutely incredible. I had that for Thanksgiving holiday. Being that that was my first Thanksgiving going through on a carnivore diet, it was
Yeah.
absolutely perfect. Like it was
Awesome.
so good.
Thank you. Yeah. No, she had that recipe goes back like I don't know 15 years or something when it used to
Wow.
be her protein noodle lasagna back when it
Hmm.
was more of a keto recipe. Uh, she just decided, you know what? I'm instead of noodles, I'm going to use these thinly shaved like deli meats like chicken
Oh,
breast.
surprising.
Yeah, and you layer it in there, and we made it for our families and whatnot. And almost everybody likes it better than traditional lasagna when it's made that way. It's even better. So yeah, just little things like that can really just change a one or two little ingredients, and boom, you've got something new that replicates a lot of the traditional, but
Yes.
improves the nutrition and ingredients.
Well, it was super good. One of the best things that I've had on carnivore, like a recipe type of thing. Of course, I love my
Yeah,
steaks and all that kind of thing,
yeah,
but it was a great, great recipe, and it's definitely in my rotation. So I have a question here, and this kind of leads into you were talking about being, doing the biology and the science and the chemistry part of the work. So I'd love to hear more about like what is your background, and Sandra wants to know if you're a doctor.
yeah. So my background is kind of interesting in it, and there's quite a few people now in this space of this keto carnivore nutrition that came from a similar background as me. I'm an electrical engineer by trade,
Mm.
so I was an electrical engineer for 20 years out of college. My wife, I met Maria, and she was into nutrition and all this for herself, and then evolved into helping for about 20 years now, helping clients with keto and then carnivore diets. And it came to a point where it made a lot of sense. I was in the background supporting our business, so it made a lot of sense for me to step away and just focus on our business and focus on helping her build her business. And eventually, I think it's that engineering mindset of not only uh, trying to understand systems and root causes of problems, but also that engineering mindset of you've in electrical engineering, especially if you're 6 months behind on the newest technology and things that are coming out, you're a dinosaur. Like you got
Yep.
to keep up on things, you got to study. So I kind of had both those things, and so basically the last 15 years that's what I've done, is studied biochemistry and got a deeper and deeper understanding of, how the bodies work, how the body processes fuels. And, I use that knowledge to, write both of these books, all the science that's in.
That is absolutely incredible. So I am an IT project program manager by trade. So when you start talking about root causes, I started thinking, why? Why is everybody, following this standard American diet or the food pyramid?
Yeah.
But when you look around you, it seems everybody, I'll use the term broadly, is so unhealthy.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And even further than that, what do we do today in healthcare predominantly? We put Band-Aids on symptoms. You've got this problem. Okay, here's this prescription to help with those symptoms. But they never address the root cause. What is causing that problem to happen? What is causing that autoimmune disorder? What is causing, I like the analogy of, it's an old proverb, I think, where somebody sees, a man sees somebody drowning, coming down the river, drowning. So they pull him out. And then they see another person drowning. So they pull them out. And another, and so they decide to put up a tent to always have somebody there to watch for these people that are drowning. And then the engineer or somebody like me would come along and say, why don't we go upstream and find out why they're drowning and falling in the river? Like, go upstream and fix the root cause of this problem instead of putting a Band-Aid on the other end of it, the result. And that's the way I look at healthcare as well, is, these medications, these prescriptions, they're Band-Aids on symptoms. And if we go upstream and we go up to diet, to sleep, to exercise, to, getting proper common sense sun exposure and vitamin D levels and all of these, upstream things, the body largely fixes. It'll do what it's supposed to do when it's given those right inputs. And I even, in this book here, I did this drawing of what is I call it a disease tree, right? So it's like the leaves or the outputs are all the diseases, diabetes, cancer, all these problems. The trunk, one of the main, regulators of these issues is insulin. That's the tree trunk. And the root causes down at the bottom, it's nutrition, it's, smoking, it's a bad input, on the, good inputs and bad inputs, right? Exercise, sleep, all these problems, all these root causes can lead to those bad outcomes if they get out of whack. But if you fix the root causes, generally the body will fix those outputs too.
So I'm curious to know, like, when was your big aha moment around this? Because, we're all out here, right? We're seeing what's happening, but there's a moment when you're like, okay, something's not right here. And then you start to study biochemistry and you realize what? What was the aha?
Well, I think for us, because we've been doing this for so long, I mean, my wife Maria's been keto herself for like 25 years. It was over 20 years now that she's been helping clients and helping people with this lifestyle as well. So we've seen a lot over 20 years. And I started holding on to these testimonies people would send us. We'd always get these. A lot of times they wouldn't pay us a penny. They would just follow our blog and their free information and lose all this weight and get off these medications and see all this stuff. And they would send us just a thankful reply, an email or a message saying, you did so much to my life. And so I started saving them. And I've got this folder now with like 4,000 or 5,000 of these testimonies. And I can go in there and search. I can search any condition and get 4, 5, 10 testimonies of somebody with that condition seeing massive improvements with diet and lifestyle change. And for me, that was kind of okay, something's here. This isn't just some weight loss, quick fix diet, whatever. People are, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, obviously seizure control, some of the things that's diabetes, but also, eczema and skin issues and Crohn's, colitis, IBS, all these things that people are seeing massive improvements in health just with changing their diet. That was really the aha moment for me that there's something bigger here.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've been just in the carnivore space for a very short time, just I started my carnivore diet about a little over a year ago. I started my YouTube channel back in August, and I said I'm just gonna start interviewing people. I want to just talk to people and talk to practitioners, talk to regular everyday folks, and find out what's happening to them. And why should we be on this type of either carnivore, ketovore type of a diet, a proper human diet? What's happening? And I started tracking, similar to you, I started tracking all of the different issues that people have told me that they've either put into remission, completely cured, or reversed by going on mainly carnivore, as most of the people that I talk to are on carnivore, some are on keto.
Yep.
And I just calculated the list. So since August, I can't remember how many people I've talked to, but it was like 65 different issues already.
Yeah.
And just the few people that I've talked to over the course of these few months. And so there's something bigger. Yeah, there's really something bigger there. Absolutely.
Yeah, and again, I think it's kind of that, traditional healthcare today, I think far too often looks at the body as some sort of, DNA, how do I explain it? It's like there's a flaw, right? Like, oh, that's just your genetics. My wife, Maria, saw this. She went into the doctor. She had IBS. She had acid reflux. She had PCOS. She was depressed because she was carrying around all this extra weight, even though she was doing everything she was told and exercising, running marathons. And basically the doctor told her, those are the cards you've been dealt. Those are your genetics. Here's some pills, like 3 prescriptions. And she's like, no, there's got to be a better way. And this is how she went, researched and fixed herself initially. But that's the view of healthcare. No, those are just your genetics. There's nothing you can do about it. Slap these pills on it. Yes. I'm much more in the position that the vast majority of the time, you fix the inputs, you fix the diet, you fix the lifestyle, you fix the environment, the body will do the right thing and you'll have the right outputs. You'll reverse these problems that are the body's screaming to tell you that there's something wrong here. I'm not getting something I want, or I'm getting something I don't want in my diet, in my environment, and I'm showing you through these symptoms. So that's kind of the way I look at it.
Absolutely. The funny thing is I recommend people to try it. Give it a try, because your body is speaking to you, but you can't hear it because you have so much noise in the system, right? And once I went carnivore, my body could really speak and say, I don't like this. I don't like cauliflower, and I ate a ton of cauliflower on keto, but my body doesn't really like cauliflower. I have some kind of adverse reaction where your body can't even speak to you because there's too much noise in the system.
Definitely. We see that all the time with people that, whether it's something in the standard American diet, like gluten or something like that, and they go keto and then they have that little bit of bread or something, and holy cow, the whole system's a wreck for the next day. And I think that's part of it, is when you're constantly inundated with a substance like gluten or cauliflower or whatever it might be that your body doesn't really like, it becomes the new normal. And so you don't really notice as much, as well as the body is just kind of always on guard for this thing because you keep giving it to it, even though it doesn't really like it. But then when you eliminate it, and the body can now rest and it's not on guard all the time for that thing. And then you reintroduce it, you really see the effects now, because, now the body's like, oh crap, here it comes again. And, you get the inflammation, you get everything that may come with that. But yeah, that's very common. And you're right, whether it's keto, carnivore, we're pretty agnostic as far as in the low carb spectrum where you want to be. But I do think that everybody will benefit from being somewhere in that low carb spectrum.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. And that's what I'm hearing from, I've interviewed a number of physicians, and all the ones that I've talked to have said the same thing. Like, you need to be like on a ketogenic type of a diet. So I really feel like it's really beneficial to get the carbs as low as you can or as low as you're comfortable with, you know.
Yeah.
So, and then some
And that's,
people, you know, I feel like people think they need carbs, but they don't actually need carbs. So I'm curious to know, in your study, you study biochemistry. So can you tell us a little bit about what is the study of chemistry, and what did you find out in your study?
yeah. So, you can go, this could be a whole multi-segment piece, but, generally speaking, biochemistry is just kind of how the body processes and uses nutrients, whether it's protein, carbs, fats, all of those processes that go into making the body work the way it works, right? And it's really fascinating when you dig into it and look into some of these things. Like, for example, the carbohydrates. Do you need carbohydrates? No, you don't need. There are essential fatty acids. Those are fatty acids that you have to eat because the body can't make them internally. There's essential amino acids. That's protein. That's protein amino acids that your body can't make, so you have to eat them. There are no essential carbohydrates. The body can make as much glucose as it needs. When you're in a ketogenic state, the body's primarily running off of free fatty acids, which is just your fat right out of your fat stores, or ketones. Is a little bit of glucose that's still needed. Red blood cells don't have mitochondria, so they have to burn glucose. That's the only way they can fuel themselves. So red blood cells, there's certain brain neurons that still use exclusively glucose. And so when you add all that up, it's maybe, I don't know, 50, 60 grams of glucose a day that's required to run the body. And the body's totally happy to make that from protein. So it just turns protein, whether it's protein you ate or off the body. That's one of the reasons we always talk about prioritizing protein, especially when you're very low carbohydrate, because that will not only give you the amino acids to fuel rebuilding cellular, autophagy, where your cells are being broken down and rebuilt into younger cells. It'll give you the amino acids to fuel that process, maintain muscle, build muscle, all those things that are done with protein. But it'll also give the body a little bit of protein from the diet to turn into glucose for the red blood cells and things it needs to make. So we definitely prioritize protein in that context. And protein is a very different thing from a biochemistry standpoint than fats and carbs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So protein is primarily a building block. It's the amino acids the body wants to use we talk about like autophagy. People talk about fasting and autophagy, which when you do extended fasting, you do increase the rate of autophagy, which is how the body breaks down older, failing older cells, and then takes amino acids and builds up new cells from the parts and the amino acids. And that does increase when you're fasting, but it also very much increases when you exercise, strength train, and possibly even more than that. And it's always going on. It's not like there's an on-off switch. Your body's always doing autophagy. And even the Nobel Prize winner for autophagy, for his research on autophagy, he estimated that our bodies turn over all the protein cells in your entire body every 3 months, every 3 to 4 months. And that's the population. So that's people eating standard American diet or not fasting whatsoever. So your body's always turning over all these protein cells. And so eating enough protein is so essential, I think, as well as the animal proteins in this book right here.
Mm-hmm.
I did these charts on where your vitamins and minerals are coming from. I did a whole chapter on it because it wasn't really out there much. This book was written like 7 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't really well known at that point, that it's more well known now, especially in this space. But if you put a plate in front of somebody and there's kale, blueberries, and a steak, and you ask them where are your vitamins and minerals, most people probably say the kale or the blueberries, but it's the steak. And that's why I put a whole chapter in here comparing all these things. Like, look at this. All your vitamins and minerals are coming from your meat, your animal proteins. And so, for all those reasons, prioritizing protein, I think, is huge. And then at that point, fueling, you got fat and carbohydrates, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that the carbohydrate side of fueling is it's not what I want. It causes me and my pain to go up. I have some conditions where the pain will definitely increase, as well as I don't think it's the best fuel source. Carbohydrates, when you eat carbohydrates, and this is kind of going back to the standard American diet type of living, when you eat a very high carbohydrate meal, your insulin's going to spike because those refined carbohydrates are rapidly absorbed into the bloodstream. And right now, you and I, we're sitting here probably with like an 80 or 90 milligram per deciliter blood glucose. That's 4 grams or a teaspoon of glucose in your entire blood volume. 1 teaspoon. Right. And so when you drink that flurry and all that, 50 or whatever teaspoons of sugars in that thing goes flooding into your bloodstream, your body's in panic mode because you can die with too high of blood glucose. And so rapidly spiking insulin to drive that down as fast as possible doesn't keep you from dying. And guess what happens? It then crashes the blood glucose, which a rapidly falling blood sugar makes you hungry. Even though you drank 1,000 calorie flurry, an hour or two later, I could eat something. If you sit down and eat 1,000 calories worth of eggs, which is like, I don't know, 24 eggs or something, you're not going to eat all day, right?
Right. Yes.
and that's because you're not having that cycle of, rapidly spiking insulin, rapidly dropping glucose. Now I'm hungry again. I spike it again. And so that's the kind of cycle you get into with the high carbohydrate side of things, where if your fuel source is primarily coming from fat, that's much more stable as far as your hunger and all of those kind of things. And that is why we pick this way. That's why we promote, keto carnivore in this space.
Yeah. I'm curious to know. So I hear you saying to prioritize protein, and I know that there's a couple camps out here around this. So a lot of people say prioritize fat. So what is the philosophy around the prioritization of protein versus fat? Like what's the thinking around
that? Multiple points there. First of all, let's go back to the nutrients. Okay.
Right.
Once again, if I give you 2 plates and both of these plates have the same amount of calories, just for a measure to use, right? So the same amount of calories on both plates. And one plate has a lot more vitamins and minerals than the other plate. So this one's got a lot of vitamins and minerals. This one, not so much. Pretty devoid of vitamins and minerals. Which one's better in general? Most people are going to say the more nutrient dense ones with more vitamins and minerals, right? Well, that plate could be a plate of protein, tenderloin, and a plate of tallow, fat. Because if you, again, look at the charts of protein versus fat, there's some vitamin A, not much else. I mean, there's not a lot of vitamins and minerals in fat. And so when you compare it against protein, it's not even close. It's like night and day. So again, I'm going to prioritize the thing that's going to give me more vitamins and minerals, and that's the protein. And then I'm going to use fat in context of what my goals and situation are, right? If I'm 500 pounds and we had this one client, Tyler, who was 645 pounds. He's got a lot of fat on his body ready to be used as fuel. Once you store that fat in your fat cells, it's not locked away to never be used again. Your body really doesn't care whether it's burning fat from your fat cells or fat from your diet. Once the saturated fat from your fatty meats gets into the bloodstream, it looks just like the fat in your fat cells, stored in your fat cells. The body doesn't care if it's going to burn it from the diet or from the fat cells. They look the same. And so at the end of the day, if you've got all that extra baggage, all that extra fat on your body ready to be burned, burn that instead of adding fat from the diet. And now the body has to either burn that instead or store that, which kind of goes against the whole losing your body fat situation. So what we do is we look at fat as the variable that you adjust based on your goals, based on your situation, sometimes based on your diagnosis. If you're somebody dealing with Alzheimer's or seizures, maybe some bipolar or certain brain conditions, you probably want a little more dietary fat to bump the ketones up, because the brain needs the more higher ketones for those situations. Okay. So that's a situation where you might need it for kind of condition. But as far as weight loss, if you dial the fat down in the diet a bit, you allow the body to burn more off the body, and that results in more weight loss, more fat loss off the body.
Interesting.
I mean, at the end of the day, when you consume fat, there's only two places for it to go, right? It can either go straight out you, so go right out in the stool, right, or it can be absorbed into the bloodstream. If it goes straight out you, you'll know. Because there's been studies on this, actually. There's a really good study that I cite in this book. I think maybe in both. And I can send you a link if you want. They varied the dietary fat from like 58 grams up to like 162 grams of dietary fat. And then they collected all the stool and analyzed it for fat in the stool. And they found that when varying dietary fat from 58 to 162, the amount of fat in the stool went from like 1.8 grams to like 2 or 3. It went up less than 2 grams. Okay. So it's not going out the stool. And if it did, you'd be on the toilet all day long, because extra fat in the stool makes it really hard to control. And some people have seen this. If they do MCT oil, MCT oil, if you overdo it, some of it will go straight through you, and it's not very pleasant.
That's true.
So generally speaking, there's only a couple grams going out the stool. The rest goes into the bloodstream. Now it's in the bloodstream. Where's it going to go? Right? Regardless of your current state of insulin, regardless of all these factors that people like to put out there, it's got to either go into fat cells and be stored, because if it doesn't, it's going to sit in the bloodstream. And guess what? Your triglycerides are going to be 2,000. Nobody wants that, right? And then people eating this way don't see that, right? If you or I go test our triglycerides, they're probably pretty low. I know mine are. Mine are like 80. So my triglycerides in my blood are very low. That means my body was able to get that fat out that I ate and put it somewhere, right? It's no longer in the blood, so it had to be put somewhere. Well, it gets put largely in your fat cells, because it should. The other places for it to go are not good. Your organs, your liver, around your organs, those are not good places to store fat. You don't want fatty liver. You don't want fatty pancreas. You don't want that fat around the organs. So you want it in the fat cells. And that's where the body.
How does one determine how much fat? Because, like I said, I'm hearing conflicting opinions on this, on whether you should have more protein or more fat. And a lot of people are saying that you should have more fat, increase your fat in order to lose weight. So how does one determine how much fat they should have?
Well, we get daily people coming to us saying, I'm following that advice and I'm just gaining weight, or I've been stalled for years, And if you're stalled for years and you've got significant weight to lose, you need to change something up. And we look at it more as an individual approach, whether it's based on your condition, like I talked earlier, Alzheimer's, or those kind of things, or your goals. This isn't a one size fits all. I mean, we don't want to slap this on everybody, say everybody's got to do it this way, and it'll work for everyone. It's an individual approach based on your goals, based on your situation. And in that situation, if you're stalled or you're gaining weight, dial the fat down a little bit and let your body use more of its own. Because again, it's kind of like you gotta like this watering can, right? And then there's a little bit of water pouring out the bottom, right? And you just decide that I want to make this can empty faster by pouring some water in the top. Is that going to work? No, you're not going to. Adding more water, you're not going to. So if you want to lose body fat, pouring more fat into the blood, how is that going to speed up that process, right? It's all going to end up in the same bucket. So why not slow down the stuff coming in and let the body burn more of its own. And so that's what we do. And, the number really depends on a lot, it depends on your goals, depends on your lean mass and your size. That's why it's also an individual approach, in that
Right.
how much protein you get is very individual as well. If you're a 5 foot tall woman that's not very active, you're not going to need nearly as much protein as a 200-pound muscled 6 foot tall man, right? They're going to need a lot more protein than that woman. So the protein depends on your size and your mass. The amount of fat in the diet just depends on your goals and activity level and situation.
Right. Okay. Very good. So I do want to ask this question, and then there's a couple of questions in the chat, but I wanted to just ask, so in your study, did you find that there was influence from what I'll call the powers that be on the actual science? So I'll give you my example. I recently took a class, and I felt like the class was influenced by someone. They said that, no, this class is not, it's not influenced by anybody. It's not sponsored by anybody in XYZ. But when I read the material, I was like, okay, so this information is coming from somewhere, and it's not actually it's not accurate with the science that we're finding out today. So I'm just wondering, in your study, did you have any challenges like that where you were like, I have to question what this education is teaching me because it's probably not accurate?
I do that on every study I look at. It's always the devil in the details. You can, if you want, you can go out and look at and find a study that will promote anything for anything, quite literally. And, once again, I'm not trying to keep touting our book, but in the beginning of this book, I laid out the case, and there's been much more evidence since we wrote this of how the sugar industry, the sugar lobby, funded all these studies to point the finger. They knew that sugar was causing heart disease. They knew that sugar was one of the big problems. And so they decided, let's get society, let's get everybody pointing the finger at saturated fat instead of sugar. And so they funded all these studies in the 70s to point the finger at saturated fat as the problem for heart disease and cholesterol and all that. And it worked. I mean, even to this day, there's still so many people that believe that. And it was just them pushing these studies and whatnot, and paying to get this message out through the studies that, this problem was a saturated fat problem, not a sugar problem. You can do this across the board with any study. If you look in the devil, again, in the details, like the China study, a lot of people point to China and say, oh, vegetarian, that's the way to go, because China study shows this links, right? I think it was Denise Minger got the data set and did a reanalysis of that study, all that data. And so in that study, they supposedly show that, animal proteins increase risk of cancer and these other things. Well, guess what? If you reanalyze the data and look at things like gluten, the correlation to cancer is way higher. But if you're not looking for gluten, if you're looking to see if meat is the problem, that's what you're going to see. And if you instead look to see if maybe gluten was the problem or if sugar was the problem, you might see double or triple the correlation you did from meat. But if you don't look for it, you're not going to see it. And so that's why the influence of the studies is so important, is because they're telling them, look for this. And if they look for this in correlational data like that, where correlational is, observational studies, they're giving somebody a questionnaire. It says, in the past 2 years, what did you eat? What accuracy can you tell that? And then you're trying to correlate that to some outcome of death or whatever, or disease. And they can't pull out, okay, was it the hamburger that was the problem? Or the bun and the fries and the extra large milkshake that you ate with the hamburger that was the problem? And so, they're very flawed for all these reasons. So, really, for any study, you got to be a detective. You got to look at the details and analyze it and look at the methods and all of that.
Yeah. There's a lot of confusing information out here for a lay person who is not like a scientist or a person who really digs in. When you look at any topic, it's like you can find somebody who's saying, yeah, 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 on this side, and somebody's yeah, 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 on the other side, and it's very confusing. So that is hard. I find that to be very difficult, but I think that you know, definitely people do need to do their research. They need to research and see and realize that there's a lot of big entities at giving us the information that we've got out here now, and it's really, really not that good.
Yeah.
It's not good for us as we've seen over the past 70 years.
And that's why I try to break it down into just more logical, like, that maybe it's the engineer, but the process
Mhm.
steps of how it works. I mean, I can get deep into the biochemistry, but just bringing it up to a level that's just more logical and simple. Like I said, once the fat is consumed, where does it
Mhm.
go? It's got to go somewhere, right? And
Okay.
so,
Yep.
and a lot of people that promote that other side of, if you need to lose weight and you're not losing weight, eat more fat. Ask them,
Mhm.
where's the fat going? Right?
Okay.
And it's not going through you because you would know, you'd be on the toilet.
Yes.
And so
It's
where
true.
does it go? And if it's just going back into that bucket, the fat store bucket and your fat cells, how's that going to speed up weight loss by adding more to the bucket?
Okay. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing all of that. I do have a couple of questions in the chat I just want to just bring up.
Absolutely.
So Sandra is asking to know about your books. How many books do you have and what are their titles? So I see two of them behind you right now.
Books and ebooks, 30 some, I think. I mean, there's a stack up there. You can see them up there. A couple over here. Yeah, we've got you name it, a lot of keto books, carnivore books, protein sparing modified fast, which is kind of our spin on extended
Mhm.
fasting. Instead of
Yep.
doing extended fasting, we do a protein sparing fast. We got books across the board. We got ebooks for all these things too. We got several carnivore ebooks and protein sparing and keto. All of those are available through our website, keto-adapted.com.
Okay. Yep.
But yeah, we have a
I'll make
lot.
sure we put a link in the description box.
20 years of writing books accumulates to quite a few.
Yeah. Wow. I'm with Sandra. Wow. That's a lot. We have another question here. Craig, have you done any research into how the body processes polyunsaturated fats from seed oils? Just curious what the body does with these.
Yeah, definitely. I like to look at it in a couple ways, right? These vegetable and seed oils, I think, are a big problem. When we look at, in the store or any processed food, it's loaded with soybean oil and, rapeseed oil, which is vegetable oil, and all of these, what are, polyunsaturated fatty acids, which are the, omega-6, omega-3s. I'm a little bit tempered on it though in this community context, and here's what I mean by that. If you go from a standard American diet where you've got mayo and dressing that is like a jug of seed oil, and you're eating that, you're going to see some nice benefits getting away from that, right? Because they're easily oxidized, they can cause inflammation. But at the end of the day, omega-6s and omega-3s are still essential fatty acids. You still need some in the diet. So what you don't need is cups of it from a dressing. But this is where I vary from some people in this community a little bit, in that I'm not going to worry about poultry or pork because it has a little more omega-6 than, say, beef. And when you look at it, it's like a gram or a gram or 2 grams of omega-6 that beef doesn't have. I'm not going to worry about that. A couple grams, not going to concern me. Cups of it from, seed oils, vegetable oils, mayo in the store, those kind of things. Yeah, that's a big problem.
Okay. So I would imagine, so just in thinking about the question is like, wouldn't it be absorbed in the body similar to other
Yep.
types of fats? So it will be absorbed in the
Correct.
body like other kinds of fats and stored in your cells,
Yes.
which
Yes,
is
but here's the
toxic,
thing.
right?
Yeah, well, they're easily oxidized because, saturated fat is very stable. And so the body can store that for a long time and it won't get oxidized, won't become inflammatory, where the seed oils are very high omega-6, which is easily oxidized. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
And if you look at, and this is my theory on this, I can't prove it, I don't have a study, but we see people all the time with this lifestyle, keto or carnivore, who don't burn in the sun as much. They don't get sunburn as like they used to
Yep,
when they were
that's right.
eating standard American diet. And my
Mhm.
theory on that is all those vegetable and seed oils, your skin is got a lot of fat in it. And when that fat gets populated with polyunsaturated fats, the seed oils, they're easily oxidized. And guess what the sun's doing in your skin when it's, you're getting sunscreen, you're getting sun exposure? It's going to
Mm.
oxidize easily oxidized fats. And that
Oh,
causes
wow.
inflammation. And that can, I think, cause more sunburn and those kind of issues. When you get away from
Mhm.
those oils and eat more healthy, saturated fats that are much more stable, then you don't see that happen as often. And we see all the time people, they just don't sunburn as much.
Yep. Yep, I think, I don't know if you know Kerry from Homestead How, the guy who's doing the Healing Humanity movie.
Yeah, great.
He he that was one of the big things that he talked about all summer long was, like, carnivores don't get sunburn. And that's pretty awesome. Like, yeah,
It's a lot
finding that.
less. I mean, if when I first come to Hawaii, I got to be careful, especially, I don't have a lot of hair up here. And if I'm out in the sun all day and
Yeah.
when we first get here, I don't have a base of tan. I can definitely still sunburn. But
Mhm.
once I get that base, after the first, I don't know, week or two, I don't use sunscreen at all.
Wow.
I'm out in the sun. I walk our dog every day, an hour or so. And even in this, Hawaii sun, I have no issues at all with sunburn or any of that. I do
Yeah.
tend to, I can feel it when I've had enough. Like,
Mhm.
after an hour or so, I'll start looking for some shade or an umbrella to temper some of that. But yeah, I mean, I could still burn, but it's far, far less than what it used to be.
Yeah. So I wanna tell a little bit about my experience last night. So I went to my in-laws' house and my father-in-law cooked some fish, and, he cooked the fish in olive oil, fried it up in olive oil. And after I ate that, my legs started aching, like aching,
Mm,
aching, aching. I was like, I'm certain that it's the oil,
yeah.
that olive oil is probably not exactly olive oil
Oh yeah.
because it's
Oh yeah.
probably
That's all kind
adulterated with seed oils. Yeah.
Yeah, if you look at this store, and even the ones that say they're all olive oil, there was some testing done, and a
Yes.
lot of them, it's like half of it's some seed oil or something. It's
Right.
crazy.
Yeah. So I really, like I was saying earlier, your body can really speak when you don't have all this noise going on. But yes, the olive oil that we had caused my legs to really I had the inflammation in my legs and they felt heavy and achy and stuff like that. And I don't like that. I don't like that
No,
feeling.
not at all, not at all.
Yeah.
It was, I don't want to call out my mother-in-law, but it was a few years ago. She made, it was like beef tip kind of thing, uh,
Mhm.
with beef, and it was in a crock pot and was sitting there, and she's like, "Oh, it's just this and broth," and we're eating some, and then she said, "Oh yeah, I put some beer in it too." And so, sure enough,
Oh.
digestive issues because of gluten the next day.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, I need to know what's in there.
Yes, absolutely. That I like to cook my own food for that very reason.
Yeah.
So, so as you're talking about the gluten intolerance, can you just talk a little bit about your own dietary journey and kind of how did you land here? And are you strict carnivore or ketovore? Like where are you at right now with things?
Yeah. So, I don't know, 17, 18 years ago, I was full keto, and I stayed that way for ever since. And Marie and I don't veer off. We don't. Since I switched, I mean, this is what I eat, and I like it because when if I did go off, like that example with the thing I didn't know was in there, I feel it and I don't like it, and so we always stick to it all the time. There's no cheat weekends or on vacations or none of that. We find ways to make it work. And so that was 17, 18 years ago. So I was keto all that whole time, but it was, I think what it would be called today, the way I ate, I was never a big vegetable fan to begin with. So I think what today people probably call it ketovore for all that time. And then about, gosh, I want to say 9 years ago, I started getting this pain in my back, and it started moving up through my back, my shoulders, my neck. And it got to the point after like 6 years of dealing with it, I was just limited to my mobility, and I was having these problems, even though I'm eating keto and was feeling amazing. And then I finally got a diagnosis of Lyme disease. And it went through a lot of process to get there, to get a proper diagnosis, which again could be a whole nother episode talking just about Lyme. And so I started treating Lyme disease about 6 years ago. And at that same time, I started eating strict carnivore because I knew of people in this space, like Charlene Anderson, she's been eating carnivore for like 20 years to manage her chronic Lyme disease pain. And so I said, well, I'm going to give that a try, right? And so I went strict carnivore, and it helped a lot. My joint pain went down. I mean, it happens within a day or two. If I include some plants in my diet, I'll notice it the next day. My joint pain will be up, all of it. And so for 6 years, I've stayed strict carnivore because it's what helps me with my pain. And this is what I want to come back to too, as far as like the disease tree and the whole process of that. If your condition was triggered by one of these bad inputs, if you fix the input, you can fix the output, right? But if the condition was triggered by something else, you can be carnivore and still get cancer, right? Because you could have some chemical in your environment or something that's sprayed on your neighbor's lawn that, you can get bad stuff coming in that wasn't food, right? In your environment. In my situation, it was a tick bite, and it was that Lyme disease that caused this cycle. From that, I got chronic inflammatory response syndrome from the chronic inflammation, the CIRS. And that triggered an autoimmune reaction, which when your immune system's going crazy, trying to fight this Lyme and all this stuff all the time, eventually it starts killing good cells. And that's an autoimmune disorder, right? You're killing healthy good cells. And I have ankylosing spondylitis now, which is, it's like fusing, my vertebrae fused together. So like most of the vertebrae in my neck are fused now, in the back, all that. And so, carnivore definitely helps me manage that pain, but it's not going to completely reverse it. I'm not going to reverse the calcification in my neck. It's calcified, it's the way it's going to be. But from here on out, staying carnivore can definitely help me manage the pain. But it's important to go back to touch on that, because a lot of people say, oh, you have ankylosing spondylitis, you have AS, you just eat carnivore and you'll be fine. Everything will be fixed. It depends on what caused it. If it was gluten, a chronic inflammatory response from, say, gluten that was causing the inflammatory, autoimmune reaction, cutting the gluten could do a lot to help with that ankylosing spondylitis or whatever autoimmune disorder it resulted in. If it's an external thing, like a virus, like Lyme disease, there's only so much you can do.
Wow. So the Lyme disease has some really severe cascading effects. It sounds like I don't know too much about Lyme disease and what it does. It sounds like it terrorizes the body.
It does. And it's only in certain people with the right, there's tons of people that get Lyme disease from a tick. They take their 4 weeks of doxycycline and they're fine. And then there's lots of people like me who that just doesn't cut it. And it's like, it's kind of like the long COVID, the people who had
Yeah.
long COVID, where they got COVID and it just kind of never stopped. It's like the
Mhm.
immune system gets turned on and it doesn't turn off for whatever reason to that specific thing. And the same thing with Lyme. The immune system gets turned on and it just doesn't turn off for certain people when
Yeah.
the Lyme is introduced. And so, we don't fully understand that mechanism or why the immune system just won't shut back off. There's tons of different modalities and methods you can try, and I've tried almost all of them. But yeah, it's pretty complex.
Wow, that's really interesting. I'm hearing that there's a new tick, or maybe it's not a new tick, but it causes people to be like allergic to meat or something. Is that
Alpha-gal, red
actually
meat.
true?
Yeah, it is, and
Oh my God.
it makes people allergic to just red meats. So you can still eat like poultry or fish or whatever, but you can't eat beef. What I understand, it isn't permanent most of the time. You can, after a couple of years, you can start eating red meat again. But it's like you throw up and convulse when you eat beef. It's pretty bad. I'm so afraid of that.
Yes. I cannot imagine. I usually generally stay out of the yard and stuff. I mean, I've been trying to get outside and do some grounding.
Yeah.
And so I'll wear my socks out there and stand on the grass with my socks on.
Whenever we live in Wisconsin, in a very heavily wooded area, and it's just fact of life in that area. But there's things you can do. You always tuck your pants into your socks because the ticks will climb up, so then you'll see them on your pants or whatever. So little things you can do to be careful, and always check if you've been out there, come in, go in the mirror, do a full body check, that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's something I definitely take much more seriously now.
Yes, I imagine so. We have a comment here. Sandra says, I was diagnosed with cervical spondylosis about 17 years ago. Before that, my pain was chronic for about 18 to 20 years. Talk about stiff necks. That's what it was. Wow.
Yeah, it's not fun. Anybody who's had it, I mean, the chronic pain is it's tough. It's always there. I don't have a no pain day. There's never a day where I have no pain. It's always, level of pain. What is it today? Is it manageable? That kind of thing.
Wow. That
Ducks
sucks. Sorry. Hey, Rick. Need to have ducks for the ticks. Yep. That the ducks eat the ticks.
Oh, they do? I didn't even know that, actually. We're in a heavily wooded area, so there's not really many ducks around.
No ducks. Yeah, right. Well, we live in like a nature, I would call it like almost like a nature preserve type of place. It's all natural wood, and everything has to be natural. Like you can't have any laminate or stuff on your home and stuff out here. So, but we live across the street from a lake. So we get a lot of ducks and geese and swans and stuff. But just having all this wooded area around is concerning for me for the ticks. And I'm like, I don't want to get bitten by a meat-hating tick. That would be awful. So let's see. Other than your Lyme disease, like you've been strict carnivore for 6 years. Like, do you remember? And you've been keto for a long time. So you probably got rid of a lot of inflammation, a lot of issues. But did you find that when you went carnivore, it took you over the edge in some ways as far as your health is concerned?
Yeah. So, I often talk about this as being keto for that long was a blessing and a curse in my situation with the Lyme disease, because I think it enabled me to let the pain go for much longer than I should have. I mean, we have clients all the time that come to us eating standard American diet with Lyme disease, and they just go keto and they feel so much better. And that doesn't fix the Lyme disease. You still got to address that. But, I was keto the whole time. And so I think that enabled me to deal with the pain a lot longer than I probably should have. I probably if I was eating standard American diet, I'll bet you in the first year, I would have been looking for a diagnosis and trying to fix this pain because the pain would have been so bad. And that's the thing with Lyme disease. A lot of times people like me with this chronic Lyme situation, the longer you let it go, the worse it gets because the immune system just keeps fighting. And then you get autoimmune reactions and all these things, where if you deal with the Lyme early on, it's usually much better. And so for me, I let it go 6+ years, and it's just a blessing and a curse in that situation. But when I did switch to carnivore, like I said, my pain did go down even more. And again, I was like ketovore before that, so I'm only eliminating like maybe a slice of tomato or onion with my burger or whatever it was. It wasn't much, but that little bit helped with my pain.
That's really awesome. I think I was listening to Dr. Georgia Ede, who did the book about Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind. And she was saying, yeah, she's awesome. Yeah, hope to get her on the show sometime. But she was saying, like, with mental challenges like bipolar, schizophrenia, those types of mental challenges, that getting all the way strict carnivore can make a big difference and make the ultimate difference in the change to the mental health. So I just wondered if it was the same with the Lyme disease.
Yeah, definitely an autoimmune situation. So that's one of the things in the carnivore book. We started out by saying, what's your why? Why are you doing carnivore? Because that can really change how you do it, right? Or what, if you even need to do it, right? So for us, again, it's kind of a spectrum of keto, carnivore, and all the in between. And where you end up depends on what your why is. If your why is general health, just general health and wellness, and you have no other issues or conditions, and you want a slice of tomato on your burger, go for it. I'm not, you can have flexibility there. If it doesn't bother your digestion, and you go for it. If you have an autoimmune disorder like me, or if you have bipolar or one of these brain conditions, Alzheimer's, seizures, those kind of things, maybe what we did in this book is we called it a carnivore autoimmune protocol, where you start at just beef and salt, and that's level 1. You do that for like a month, and then you slowly add in different types of protein, see how your body reacts, add in, maybe some eggs, then maybe add in dairy, and kind of build back up to where your tolerance level is for that condition. And so depending on what your why is, you can have this kind of protocol to find out where your tolerance level is.
That's really cool. I mean, that's why I did carnivore. I said I'm going to do it as an elimination diet. And I did all the meats, though. I didn't go all the way to beef and salt. I didn't even know that was a thing at the time that I started. But, doing eliminating to see what is causing, the autoimmune conditions. I have like eczema and some other IBS and stuff like that I was dealing with. So, that's a really good approach, is elimination.
Yeah, I would say generally with those conditions you described, the one thing I would cut is dairy. I would, you may not have to go all the way to beef and salt, get that strict when it comes to like, unless, if you've got bipolar, if you've got, a serious autoimmune disorder, I would try it. I would go to the extreme, go right to beef and salt. But something like you're describing, a lot of these skin issues, digestion, dairy could be the key that really, and you could eat all the proteins you want, different types of proteins, but just getting rid of the dairy might be the key in a lot of those situations.
Yes, absolutely. Totally agree. I can't believe it. It's been like 58 minutes already. That's so crazy. Awesome. So I have to ask about the kids. I got to ask about the kids because I'm a grandma. So CarnivorousGrama. So can you just tell us how the kids are doing and what is their diet like? What's going on with them? They're amazing.
We adopted them at 1 and 2 years old from Ethiopia. The nutrition, obviously, in Ethiopia in an orphanage wasn't great. And they came here not even registering on the growth charts, like 3% or 2% height and weight. And we just started feeding them what we eat. And again, we've, eaten this way for 17 years. So, little baby Kai, some of his first solid foods were bone marrow and egg yolks and, salmon broken up in little pieces. And, they shot up to 50. And then after 2 years, they're like 75% on the height and weight charts. And they've stayed there ever since. They thrive. They're in advanced classes and math and stuff. And we homeschool them. They're well above their grade in those areas. And they're thriving and they're loving it. And, they can have whatever they want. They can eat whatever they want. We'll make any of, we got recipes for everything. But yeah,
yes, you do.
They eat a lot of meat though, a lot of animal proteins for sure.
I can say, Kai is hilarious.
Yeah.
I watch him on the videos and I'm like, he cracks me up. He's got the eyes and he's so expressive.
He's a little actor. He's got him and Micah. They're very different. The right brain, left brain kind of thing. Like Kai is the total artist, where Micah's more analytical and math and that kind of stuff. So it's really cool. They're awesome.
They are awesome. And I love the videos on you guys on Maria's channel, because it's just
thank you.
So fantastic. I love her recipes. And I did, I've seen her being on a couple of different shows. The last one was Reverse that I saw her on. And so I just love Maria. So
I'll let her know.
So, but I do want to share your channel here for a second. Oh, yes. So let me just pull it up, and then you can just tell us a little bit about what you're doing on your channel. I think your channel is absolutely awesome, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Oh, this is my personal one. Yeah. One of my big hobbies is just photography. I've always liked photography from, back to high school days. And so you'll see a lot of the whale photos here in Hawaii. That's one of the things we love about the winters here in Hawaii. The humpback whales swim down from Alaska and they have their babies here, and I get my drone out and film them, and it's awesome.
Cool.
Thank you. And then, so I do about half and half. I try to do some of my photography as well as nutrition stuff. So kind of half and half on there.
Yeah. So your shorts have been popping up on my page, and I'm just like, oh my God, it's whales. I have to get back gotta get back to Hawaii. So
I just was over one before here. There was 2 different mom and baby pairs, which is pretty late for them. Usually most of the whales are gone now. They're swimming back to Alaska right now. But there's 2 late babies apparently that were hanging out here this morning. So got a couple clips, last minute clips.
Look at this. Like, is this somebody you know?
The screen's not updating and I don't see.
Oh, it's like it's a person that looks like on a kayak, and there's a whale underneath the person. That's crazy.
That's Maria. That's Maria. And that's Maria and Micah. Micah's on the back of the paddleboard, and it's a paddleboard that, and I had the drone and did the drone of them. It's pretty awesome.
God, that's incredible. I think I would be terrified of that.
They are gentle giants. I mean, they truly are. If there's a video of that, if you go to my channel, and the baby comes up next to the paddleboard, gets a little too friendly, and so the mom comes to just move the baby away from them. And mom's huge, 50 feet long, 50 tons. Like, they're just massive animals. And it comes up and it just pushes the baby away gently from the paddleboard, and it could have knocked them right off with their tail, but just didn't even touch the board.
Wow, that's so cool. That is very, very cool. I love your channel, and I was so happy when I started seeing those whales popping up in my shorts. I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. I love it.
I've been so busy this winter. I've got so much footage I'm going to be posting over the next few months once I get some time to actually go through it. So I got lots more footage coming.
Awesome. So you guys need to go and subscribe to Craig's channel. And he's got his
and Maria's
name there. And Maria's, I'm just assuming that everybody's subscribed to Maria's channel, but yes, You need to subscribe to Maria's channel. And definitely Craig's got 2 books right here behind him. So we want to pick those books up for sure. I'll make sure that we put the links in the description box below. So Craig, since we are a little bit over an hour, just if you had one thing that you could say to folks about this lifestyle, or one thing that's on your heart to share, can you just share that with us?
Oh, this being in this space is so rewarding. Just seeing what's always amazed me is how much good diet can do for people's health. And, that's always just been the aha moment for me, as well as my motivation to keep doing this and helping people, putting out free content and there's so many people that could benefit from this. And I try to focus on the science and do it in a way that is beneficial for everyone and works for everyone. Because some people will come in and be like, "Oh, I tried keto and it didn't work for me." And then we ask them, "Well, how you were doing it?" "Well, I was doing shots of MCT oil," and it's like, okay, prioritize protein, do it this way, and you'll have a much better experience. So I just want everybody to succeed with this lifestyle.
Me too. Absolutely. 100%. That is my heart, and basically to get the message out. I know that I've been watching her for years. So, she's been doing this for a long time, but there's a lot of people still in the world that have not heard about this yet. Not even heard about keto, not heard about carnivore, not seeing the amazing health benefits. So it's absolutely incredible. And I love what you're doing to get the word out. I've been seeing you like popping up on all these channels, telling everybody the story. So it's absolutely incredible. And we appreciate you.
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
We have one additional question. I'm going to put it up and see. They want to know, are your kids blood siblings?
They're not. Maria's told the story before, but we originally got our referral, and they send you pictures, and it was 2 photos, and Maria basically was saying, or the guy was saying, "Which one would you like?" And I said, "Both. They're both gorgeous and adorable, and we wanted 2 kids, so why not do it 2 at once?" And the original baby, one of the smaller one, not Micah, died of malaria like a few months after that. Gosh. Like 2 months after that. And so they gave us a new referral, and that was Kai. And Kai was meant to be with us, so it all worked out. But they're amazing kids.
They are. Well, again, I appreciate you, Craig. Thank you so much for being here. And for those of you that are watching either live or in the replay, thanks guys for being here again tonight. If you're interested in being interviewed or coming on and chatting with me on the show, you can email me at robin.heron@hotmail.com, and we'll get you on here and let you tell your story of health and healing through your carnivore, ketovore, or keto way of life. In the meantime, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.